and welcome everyone. So I'm sharing my screen, starting my presentation. Hope you can see everything well. We're going to talk today about teaching English to students with dyslexia. Usually the talk is teaching languages to students with dyslexia, but I mean, I guess you're all English teachers, so I changed languages for English, which is basically what I've done for the past years as well. So my name is Boelo van der Poel. I wrote it down on the screen here so you can really know how it's pronounced. It's not Boelo. Don't dare me call Boelo from now on. I'm Dutch from birth, as you can see, Van der Poel, Dutch surname. I've been living in Spain for 30 years, more than half of my life. And I've been involved in language learning and language teaching for all those years, actually. I've worked for language schools in Spain. I worked in the UK for a year. I worked in Germany, then moved back to Spain, set up my own language school, ran that for 25 years. About 7-8 years ago, I started, I did a master's degree in coaching and emotional intelligence. I applied it to language learning. So I'm a language coach as well, coaching students and helping teachers to coach their students. And about 5 years ago, I think it is now, 5 years. 5 years ago, I got in touch with the world of dyslexia. It was completely unknown to me. I knew nothing about dyslexia. I got in touch with people that worked on dyslexia in a European project. They wanted me there for the emotional intelligence side. And honestly, I fell in love with the topic. It's an amazing topic. I didn't know anything, and I went like, oh my God, this is a big thing. And specifically, I thought this is a big thing when I started speaking to students, when I started speaking to parents, usually mothers, and I saw the frustration in education in general, but I saw the utter frustration when it came to learning English, as a Spanish speaker. So this is all from a Spanish speaking perspective, but I think the majority of language learners with dyslexia face the same. This is when I started working on adapting language courses, language classes, English classes to students with dyslexia, because there is nothing out there. Nobody actually did this, or at least I didn't know of anyone who did, and neither did the people I spoke to. Took me about a year to set it up, another year to do my trials, and then 2 years we really ran the courses with amazing success. It was really beautiful to work with these students. And then I got more and more teachers asking me like, hey, how do you do this? I want to know this too. I want to learn about this. And I went like, okay, I'm going to turn everything around and make this into something more, something bigger. And now my new quest, so to speak, is to spread the word, as I usually say, and get as many language teachers as I can involved and in teaching English to students with dyslexia, and creating awareness about this, because it's a very big thing. And before I want to start, I always say, whatever I say today, whatever strategies, tips, etc., I give you for students with dyslexia, always also works with the rest of the students. So it's never something you go like, oh, it's for a small group here, and then I have to do something for the rest. No, whatever you do for your dyslexic student also works for the rest. Now in this quest, I speak a lot at conferences. I do online courses. I go to webinars like this, etc. And a couple of weeks ago, I was at a conference here in Spain, and a teacher came up to me and afterwards, and she said, "Oh, Boelo, beautiful. I love it. I really love it, what you're doing. It's so beautiful for these poor little kids with dyslexia that face so many trouble. But honestly, it's not that big a thing, you know." She said, I may have had like 3 or 4 students with dyslexia so far in my classes. And I said, really? She said, yeah, really. She said, only 3 or 4 students. And I said, that you know of. And she said, why? What do you mean that you know of? I said, well, that you know of, because 10 to 15% of general population has dyslexia. So 10 to 15% of your students probably also have dyslexia. And she said, I don't believe it. She said, because honestly, I've only seen 3 or 4 students with dyslexia so far. And I said, okay, well, how many students have you had in your classes so far that are lazy, that are unmotivated, that are disruptive, that have been class clowns, acting up in class? Students that you would say she can if she wants to, you know, or maybe even some students that you just plain think that are stupid. And she said, oh, well, no, I definitely have about 20-25% of those in my classes. And I go, there you go. There are your dyslexic students. Because maybe those students aren't lazy, they aren't unmotivated, maybe they are disrupted for a reason, maybe they act up as a class clown for a reason, maybe she can, but she doesn't know how to, and maybe they're not that stupid, because maybe, just maybe, they are dyslexic, and you can't see it. And then I said to her, I said, let's do some math. And I said, how many years of teaching experience do you have? And maybe you guys can do the same. It's very, very easy equation. It's really not very advanced math. I'm not such a good of a math person myself either. So how many years of experience you have? And she said 10 years of experience. And I said, okay, what's the average of students you usually teach on a yearly basis? This was a community school in Spain, where students start in September, finish in June. And she said, usually between all my classes, I have an average 95 students per year. And I said, okay, well, 10 years experience, an average 95 students per year. So it's like, in your lifetime as a teacher, as an English teacher, you will have seen 950 students. So if we don't go with 15, but if we go with 10% instead of 15, you will have seen 95 dyslexic students in your teaching career so far. But you only know of 4. So I say there's 91 students, 91 people who were in your classes, who paid for you to teach them English, and who you probably thought that they were disruptive, class clown, she can if she wants to, unmotivated, or plain stupid. But there probably was something behind this, and this something was dyslexia. So just think for a second, just one split second, how many dyslexic students have you had in your classes? How many dyslexic students have been in your classes and you didn't know about this? Now, I don't want you to feel bad about this. This is not why I do this talk, so don't please go away right now. I don't want to blame teachers. I never blame teachers for this. I will start blaming teachers for this after they do training with me, because if after they do training with me, they are not able to help their students, then yes, then it's up to you. But so far, it's not up to you, because you have never been taught how to teach students with dyslexia. Worse, you've never been taught how to recognize dyslexia. You've never been taught to understand dyslexia. And problem is, the majority of dyslexic students don't even know they are dyslexic themselves. Because for themselves, they also are unmotivated, class clown, disruptive, or plain stupid. And they go around like they go the whole education system, they just walk through the whole educational system thinking that they are these things. They go through this system with those negative beliefs about themselves. Now, let's talk about what dyslexia actually is. So what is dyslexia? Whenever somebody asks me, what is dyslexia? I always try to explain them what dyslexia is with the vending machine. I always say dyslexia for me is a vending machine. I'm a very visual person. I'm dyslexic myself, actually. This is also why I really like this topic. I actually realized I'm dyslexic only 4 years ago when I started working on the project. And I went like, it explains a lot of things about my own life. Why vending machine? You know that when you walk up to a vending machine, it happened to me a couple of months ago. You walk up to a vending machine, you're thirsty, and you want a bottle of water, and the vending machine works with a euro coin, right? So I get my euro coin out, I put it in the vending machine, and the euro coin comes out again. So it falls out again. The vending machine doesn't want my euro coin. So I get euro coin and I clean it. Yeah, I never know why we do this, but we always clean the coin. As if it's like a laundromat, like a laundrette. It has to clean your coin. Only clean coin. So put my coin again, clean, falls out again. And now I get a little bit frustrated. I put it in again, falls out again. And now I get angry. And I start rubbling the machine. I start shaking the vending machine. Comes out again, get up my coin, put it in again. And out again, the euro coin. And now I start hitting the machine. I start shaking it heavily. I start cursing at the machine. And at that time, I look a little bit further and I see that next to my vending machine, there are 3 or 4 more vending machines that also sell water. So I pick up my euro coin, I go to the next vending machine, I put my euro coin in the next vending machine, I get my bottle of water, no problem whatsoever. I take my water, I look around, I still have a glance back at that first vending machine, I still curse it a little bit, and I'm even looking at it and thinking, if I ever come back here, I have to remember to never ever go to you for a bottle of water. I will go to any of the other vending machines. But something that hadn't occurred to me was that maybe instead of a euro coin, that first vending machine worked better with 2 50-cent coins. Or instead of 2 50-cent coins, maybe that vending machine worked better with a 2 euro coin. And if I put a 2 euro coin in, instead of giving me just my bottle of water, because that's actually what I wanted, so the deal was I give you a euro, you give me a bottle of water, but instead of just my bottle of water, it would have given me a bottle of water and an apple. So it would have given me more than what I actually expected from the vending machine. Or maybe this was a completely out of the box thinking vending machine, and it works better with a credit card. So maybe it was not the vending machine, maybe it was me, and maybe it was the input that I was giving the machine. Now, the same happens with the dyslexic brain. The dyslexic brain is a brain that processes information in a different way. It's not worse, it's not better, it's just different. That's also why I try to hide and flee away, walk away as fast as I can from anything that is D for disability or D for difficulty. For me, the D is difference. For me, it's a learning specific difference. It's not a difficulty, it's not a disability. So first and moreover, dyslexia is a different way of the brain of processing information. Dyslexia also is a phonological processing issue. It is how the brain processes phonological information, how it processes the information on a screen, on a piece of paper, and how the whole brain circuit works with that and makes sense of what you are reading. It's a long and slow process for the dyslexic brain. Hence, dyslexics are usually very slow readers. It's not that they can't read, it's that they read slower than other students. They're usually also slow and bad writers. Reading and writing go hand in hand. They're slower in writing, and usually their handwriting is worse as well. It's more difficult to read their handwriting. Many dyslexics, the vast majority, have attention deficit. It's difficult for them to keep focused on something that has to be done. There's a very, very high comorbidity overlap between dyslexia and ADHD. Actually, if you cover anything that you can do for dyslexic and ADHD students, you will have covered almost 80% or more of special educational needs students. Dyslexic also have a very bad working memory. Usually the working memory, the neurotypical person can store up to between 5 and 7 chunks of information at the same time in working memory. A dyslexic student maybe can do 2 or maximum 3. That sometimes when students have to do a running dictation, and students run over there, they read the text and they run back and they go to the table and they sit down and say, what did it say on the piece of paper? And I said, I can't remember. The only thing I remember was running over there and running back and where the table was and what my group was, but I really can't remember what it said on a piece of paper. Now let's play a little game. We're going to play a little game on phonological decoding. You see here a decoding task number 1. This is a very simple task. You see the key here on the right. Yeah, so this shape, this triangular shape, is the a in cat, flap, bat. This one is the went, bent, friend. This is a in ship, pitch, synonym, etc. Yeah, you've got this. This is the word, and I would like you to write down in the chat if it is 1, 2, 3, or 4. Man, fan, men, or thing. It's only 3 phonemes. It's not that difficult. So 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Beautiful, wonderful. Yes, you're really wonderful group of students we've got here. Yes, it's men. It's number 3. Now let's make it slightly more difficult. I've taken away the options. I've given you slightly more keys. And the word is a little bit longer. What do you make of this? Come on, guys, it's just one word. It's not that difficult. Yeah, great, wonderful. Good students. Good phonemic awareness. It's menus, exactly, it's menus. But still, it's taking you some time. Some are faster, others are a little bit slower. They might have to think it over twice or 3 times, make sure that this is exactly what it says here. And it's just one single word. It's not that difficult. So imagine how, just remember how maybe you felt right now when you saw this word, where maybe you were a little like, oh my God, this is a long word. This is difficult. What is it? Whoa, it's how do I have to read this? How do I have to process this? Imagine you're a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, and this is what you have to do, and you have difficulty cracking the code. You have difficulty cracking the letters that are on a page, because in the end, written text is nothing more than a code that we invented. It might have well been the symbols, but we call them letters, which are the other ones. And now you guys are adults. You guys, I can only imagine you have an education and you have a healthy self-esteem. If you're a 9, 10, 11 or 12-year-old and you're not that educated and you have trouble with this and you already have a very low self-esteem, and then the teacher, like I just did for one sentence, one word, and I said, come on guys, it's not that difficult, just one word, and the teacher says this to you over and over again, and you see that classmates are faster because some of you were really fast and others took like 10, 15 seconds longer, and you're always the one that is 10, 15 seconds slower or 30 seconds slower than the others. How does that make you feel in the end? You know, that's why emotional intelligence is such an incredibly important thing when you deal with students with dyslexia. Now, how do I know that a student is dyslexic? That's obviously the question. You can say, yeah, okay, beautiful, wonderful. I now know that dyslexia is a thing. I know that 10 to 15% of my students are likely to be dyslexic, but how on earth do I know? Well, there are many ways of knowing if a person is dyslexic. There's many ways to screen a person for dyslexia. A teacher, a language teacher, people like you should never be diagnosticians. You should never have to diagnose a student. That's not our job. It's not my job either. But I do believe that it is our job to recognize the symptoms, to recognize dyslexic traits in our students and go like, I think this student might be dyslexic. Let's do something with this student. Let's work with this student in a different way. For me, the biggest red flag when talking about dyslexia and finding out if a student is dyslexic is the unexpectedness. It's when things happen in a classroom with a student and you go like, there's something here that I didn't expect. There's something going on. Now, let's just say that grammar and vocabulary are the main items of learning a language. Okay, I'm going to simplify it extremely. So grammar and vocabulary are the main items that a student needs. And let's say that I ask a student to talk about, I don't know, his hobby. Talk to me about your hobby, please. And the student can talk to me with very, very rich vocabulary. Sometimes even richer vocabulary than the student's actual level. So maybe he's B1 level and he throws in some B2 words that I go like, oh wow, this is unexpected, and even very good coherent grammar structures. And he can speak for 5 or 10 minutes. And then the next class, I say to the same student or the same group of students, I say, hey guys, let's do a writing. And I want you to write about the same topic. I want you to write about your hobby. And when I get the writing back from my student, the writing's over here. I get one mere paragraph. I get like really very, very, very little produce of my students with very limited grammar, even funny grammar mistakes, very limited vocabulary, very simple vocabulary, and probably with spelling mistakes. And with spelling mistakes that when you're at a B1 level, might even be for A2 students, that you would go, this is an A2 spelling mistake, but that student makes it. If you see these discrepancies, that's when the teacher says to the student, I know you can because I've heard you speaking, but I think you don't want to because now you are here with the writing. When that's the case, then for me that is a very, very big red flag of a possible dyslexia. When we don't recognize dyslexia in our students, when dyslexia isn't worked for, I don't say treated, because you can't treat dyslexia is not a disease. You can't get over dyslexia. You can learn how to live with your dyslexia. You can learn how to navigate the educational system with dyslexia very easily. But when we don't, the consequences might be that students drop out of school. There's a very high school dropout rate among students with dyslexia. There's also a very high percentage of students with dyslexia that end up having mental health problems. In the UK, they did research among prison population, and they looked for dyslexic traits among inmates, and they saw that more than half of inmates had dyslexic traits. More than half. Remember when I said 10 to 15% of population has dyslexia? In prison, it's more than 50%, more than half. And this also goes for youth prisons. They did the same in youth detention centers. They did the same with a group of homeless people. And they realized that a very high percentage, definitely more than 15%, I think it was about 30, 40% minimum, of people that were homeless had dyslexic traits. And there is a higher probability of committing suicide. There's more people that commit suicide with dyslexia than 15%. So if we bear this in mind, like, oh my God, so there's all these people with dyslexia in education. Many of them don't even know they have dyslexia, and others do know that they have dyslexia, but education isn't doing what can be done for those students. This is where they can end up. But on the other side, dyslexia is also very, very creative people. Dyslexics are usually extremely creative. Walt Disney was dyslexic. Mozart was dyslexic. Steve Jobs, dyslexic. Jennifer Aniston, Tom Cruise, dyslexic. There's many, many people in creative businesses that are dyslexic. There are actually architect studios that only hire dyslexic architects because they know they are creative. They know that they can think and process in different ways. Dyslexics, I told you before that I'm dyslexic as well. This doesn't go for me. Dyslexics usually are at least average, if not above average intelligent. Some people think, oh my God, dyslexic must be stupid. No, definitely not stupid at all. Dyslexics are usually intelligent as a neurotypical person, or even more. Dyslexics are usually very good holistic thinkers. Dyslexics are very good at seeing the big picture. They can see the whole thing. You can, if you have a problem, they are amazing problem solvers. They find solutions that others can't see. You talk to the dyslexic people and they say, no problem. If there is a problem, no problem for me, because I can find the solution. They're very good at making puzzles as well. I've been in situations myself where colleagues would come up to me and would say, Boelo, we've got this problem, and dude, honestly, we've been working on this for almost an hour, and we just don't know what to do. We're completely lost. Can you help us? And it was three of my colleagues. And I said, yeah, of course, no problem. So I take a piece of paper to make it visual. I asked them some questions to tell me the problem, ask them some questions. I made my mind map, and within 2 minutes, I know the solution. Within 2 minutes, I can see holistically what the situation is like, and I can find a very creative solution. And I can, oh, just do this, and that's the solution. And they will look at me and go like, how on earth have you been able to do this in 2 minutes, and it's taken us an hour, and we didn't see this? And I said, because my brain processed this information in a different way. On the other side, I'm not good at all at minor details. That really takes a lot of energy for me to focus on details. They, for instance, are good with that. So the dyslexic brain processes information in a different way, as I said. Now, the next question is, what can I do? What can I do as a language teacher for my dyslexic students? So now I know that dyslexia is a thing. I know it's important. I know that not dealing with dyslexia might be really detrimental for my students. I might even know how to recognize it. There's many more strategies, but I gave you one big red flag. What can I do for those students? First of all, the best thing you can do is adapt your text. Whatever text you give to your student, if it's a reading, if it's a test, if it's an exam, whenever you can, adapt your text. So you've got 2 texts here. They're both in Spanish. I told you I'm living in Spain. They're both in Spanish. Text on the left is the same as the text on the right. We're going to adapt the text on the right, step by step. First of all, I'm going to align them to the left. You see the one on the left is justified. The one on the right is aligned to the left. It's all minor details, and it's all about making it easier for the brain to process the information. It's not that you can't read the text on the left. It's not that the dyslexic brain can't process the text on the left. It's that the one on the right is easier to process for the dyslexic brain. And aligning it to the left means that the distance between the words horizontally, the distance between the words is always the same. On the left, it isn't. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. First aligning. Second, I change my font. If you see that the font on the left is a serif font, the font on the right is a sans serif font. This actually is this sans or something like this. It's a dyslexia font on Canva, but you can use Arial, you can use Verdana, you can use any sans serif font that you can get hold of. I know there are some fonts out there that are supposed to be extremely dyslexia friendly. There's one font, I can never remember the name, but it's like the dyslexia friendly font. I personally hate it. I know many other dyslexic people that hate it too. Some others like it. It looks nice. It's a visual font, but I would never read a book in that font because I think it's horrible to read. But font is very important. Font size, I usually use between 12 and 14. Not bigger, not smaller. I know that I heard of some people that went to do official exams, and then in the official English exam, I'm not going to say the organization, they gave them font 18 or 24, and they said, I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic, I'm not visually impaired. You know, so it doesn't have to be 24. 14 is fine for me, but still they did. So font size as well. Then paragraphs, and I think this for me, and this is for me personally, and I know other people as well, this is probably the most important thing. break your text up in paragraphs as much as you can. It's spacing the text on the paper, you know. And again, it's making it easier for the brain to process the information. When I have to read a text like the one on the left, and especially when it's text that you read and move away from the text, you're either answering a question, or you're writing something down, or you're looking up a word because there's a word there that you don't understand and you have to look it up and then go back to the text. So I read, go away, go back to the text. With the text on the left, I will not know where I was. And I will have to screen the whole page to remember where I was. If it was in the beginning, at the middle, at the end, and even where at the end it was, where in the phrase, I will really not know where I was. With the text on the right, it's much easier for me to remember where I was. And I can go back much easier. And that, doing exercises, exams, etc., it does save time and it does save a lot of energy. And usually in paragraphs, what I do is I use one concept per paragraph. So if I read my text and I go, oh, concept done, I covered this concept, bang, new paragraph. Sometimes a paragraph can be 2 lines, literally. It doesn't have to be more. And it's also important to use that space when you give students tests, when you give students exams. Instead of cramming 10 questions on a page, use 2 pages and do 5 per page. Or if you put them on the screen, 1 question at a time, and let them work on that and then move on to the next one. Line spacing is important. This is 1.5. Again, making it easier for the eye to focus on the text that needs to be read. If it's too close together, many dyslexic readers go from one line to the next, and they mix up the sentences and mix up the words. And the last thing that I do is give my texts a different background color. So I usually give them an off-white, or you can give them a very light yellowish, or maybe salmon color, or light green, a very light background, not pure white. Pure white is more intensive for reading. The eye needs to spend more energy on the right. It's a softer reading. And if you don't believe me, when we finish this webinar, go to your bookshelf, get a novel from your bookshelf, open it, check if the pages are pure white. No, they're not. They're always off-white. It's always different color. So I usually say to schools as well, whatever you do, print on recycled paper. That's it. Instead of buying pure white paper, always buy recycled paper. Print everything on recycled paper, and you're done. And then I always ask, for a non-dyslexic person, probably for you guys, for non-dyslexic people, do you think it would be easier for you, or what would you prefer? Would you prefer to read the text on the left, or would you prefer to read the text on the right? And for your whole groups, like all your students, would they prefer to read the text on the left or the text on the right? I'm pretty sure that 95, if not more percent, will say, no, teacher, I prefer the text on the right. I prefer the adapted text. Now, and if you want to be an even more inclusive teacher, you go like, oh yeah, I'm really going to make this a thing. I'm going to be the inclusive teacher from the school, the most inclusive teacher in our school. At the beginning of, I usually say this to community school teachers as well, because they stick with their students longer. But maybe if you guys have students that stick, or a group of students that is there for 3 months or even for a couple of weeks, whatever, you same as I did, give a paragraph of text to your students. Do it in different fonts, because some teachers say, oh, but I'm really into Comic Sans. I really like that font. Oh no, I'm really Verdana person. It's not about you, it's about your students, it's about their reading. But why not let them choose? Why not make one paragraph in 3 different fonts, hand it out to your students, make them choose, and say A, B, or C. And then you write it down on a piece of paper where you have all your student names, and whatever text I make for my 15 students, I do 6 in A, 4 in B, and 5 in C, for instance. And then I hand them out. And literally, if it's printing your stuff from Word, it's less than a minute extra, because it's just selecting, changing font printing, selecting, changing font printing, and that's it. And for students, wow, a huge difference, especially for those with dyslexia. What else can you do? Well, there's a lot you can do, but I've only been given 45, 50 minutes, so I can't give you everything, but I can give you some key items that you can do in class with your neurodiverse dyslexic students. First, use less text. I'm not saying no text. So I'm not saying chuck it up. No, use less text and try to use more visuals. And also when you use visuals, be coherent in the visuals. Always use the same visuals for the same concept with your students, and only use the visuals that are necessary. Sometimes people go like, oh, well, now they're visual learners, so I'm going to chuck in only visuals and I'm going to throw in 30 visuals per activity. No. Don't overwhelm them with visuals either. Only use the visuals that are necessary for your students. Use colors. Color coding is extremely powerful. Color coding for spelling, color coding for grammar, color coding for keywords in texts. When you give text to students and you know they have to look for the keywords in the text, I'm going to make them a different color so at least they understand these words, etc. Something important with text that I didn't tell you before, cursive is usually not a very good thing for dyslexic students, and underlining isn't a very good thing either. So if you want to highlight a word or part of a text in your text, it's better to make it either bold or a different color. And I would usually actually do both. Make it bold and a different color to really stand out, and the eye really focuses on what it needs to focus on. And they really know this is the important word, this is what I have to be looking at. And also make sure you are coherent with your colors. If you are working on a different on a grammatical structure, always make sure that the verb endings with that structure have that same color. Don't change the color, otherwise the student will go like, oh my god, this must be a different tense because the color is different. Make sure you always use the same color. Try to work less with syntax and more with holism. So be more holistic. Use the whole language. Put things into context. Use whole texts instead of small sentences, and bring the vocabulary or the grammar structure back in the text instead of in 2-3 lines of activities or exercises. Work with mind maps. I think I've said this several times already. Dyslexic students are usually very visual. They're very good at seeing big pictures, holistic, so more holism. And mind maps are very, very powerful. You can make mind maps for grammar. You can make mind maps for vocabulary. You can make mind maps for basically anything. And if you don't know how to make them, you can go online and you can look for mind maps. You can find them on Google them. It's no problem whatsoever. And your students love it. And it's even better if your students can make their own mind maps. So instead of you handing out mind maps, help your students to make their own mind maps. Scaffolding. It is very, very important to scaffold what you do in class, to make students aware of what they do and aware of the link between what I've done before and what I do next. Yeah, what I did there and what I do now and what we do next, and what's the relationship between those. Otherwise the student will go like, hey, what's this? Why do I have to do this? What's going on now? Am I missing something? They're looking for a link that they can't see, so you have to give them that link and make sure you scaffold. Chunking is also very important. Try to break things up in the tiny little bits, in the tiniest bits that you can. I usually say between 7 and 10 minutes maximum per activity, and one activity is just one concept, not 2 or 3 concepts, one concept. Try to keep it organized. Try to keep your classroom organized. No cluttering, no mess, no 10,000 things on the wall. Keep the desk organized. Keep your classroom structure organized, that students know exactly what will be done today, what's going to be first, what's going to be second, what's going to be next, what's going to be here, when can I rest. I know what to expect in class. And when you evaluate your students, when you work with your students, try not to evaluate in red, very important. And also try to evaluate what is really necessary and what is really important. So if you ask students to produce a text, as I said before, about your past holidays, and you get something back from your students, look at their written expression. Don't look at their spelling mistakes. Many dyslexic students have the experience of trying to write something in the language and then really working really hard on getting their ideas on a piece of paper and getting everything organized and then handing it to the teacher. And then instead of getting a 6 or a 7, which could have been, they get a 2 or 2 over 10 because of all the spelling mistakes. You were not looking for spelling mistakes. That was not that you were testing for with these students. You were looking at their oral expression, how they can get their ideas on a piece of paper. I'm not saying don't look at the spelling mistakes, like forget about them. No, but maybe just highlight them and just realize yourself, oh, this student has difficulty with the OU spelling or with double S or with whatever. Highlight it. Maybe even tell the student, hey, I've seen you've got some spelling issues here and there. We'll work on that in another class, but hey, great work, well done. I see you worked on this. Carry on like this. And emotional intelligence. It is very, very important that we apply high levels of emotional intelligence with our students, especially with our dyslexic students. I said it to you before when we played that little decoding game. The vast majority of dyslexic students have very low self-esteem. They're experienced to hearing what I said at the beginning of this talk. You're lazy, you're a class clown, you're unmotivated, you're stupid. Maybe you're not stupid, but you just don't want this, and this is not helping them. So we have to be very, very aware of how we treat our students emotionally, so to speak. And most of all, if we really want to help our students, we need a whole school approach. So it's beautiful. It's amazing if one single teacher does a training. I do trainings with teachers, and I love it when teachers sign up individually to my training because it really means that they care and they care about their students and they want to make a difference for their students. But if it's one teacher in a school that does it, and then that particular student goes from one class with that teacher, that's amazing, and they learn so much and they love it and they thrive, and then that student moves to a next teacher who doesn't, or wherever, because the school as a whole doesn't do it, then the teacher goes down again. And that's that up and down continuously. I've spoken to many students who complain about the same, that say, listen, I had this wonderful teacher in 5th grade. She was amazing. I had the best year of my life. I got almost straight A's all year. And in 6th grade, different teacher, couldn't care less about my dyslexia. And it all went down to 2s and 3s and D's and whatever the grading system is. And that for your self-esteem is horrible. So whole school approach, all the teachers involved, school management involved, school administration involved, because it's the people in administration that speak to the students, that speak to the families. They need to know how to talk about dyslexia. They need to know how to speak to the families. And with you guys, I always say, and get your agencies involved. Your agencies are your forefronts. They're the people that send you the students. They should know about this because dyslexia is actually a commercial advantage. If you can cater for these people, remember, 10 to 15% of population has dyslexia. How many people with dyslexia are there in Germany, in Italy, in Spain, Netherlands, China, well, everywhere around the world with dyslexia that would never go to Ireland to learn English because they're stupid, because they're lazy, because they're class clowns, because they just can't do it, they're unmotivated, because that's how they've been labeled, because they're dyslexic. How would it be if you would say, no, I can do this for you, I can help you, I can cater for you? That's why a whole school approach is so tremendously important. Now, very quickly, we're coming to the end of the talk before you can ask your questions if you have any. I have this for you. There's several ways that I can help you start doing this already. So I wrote a guide, a free guide on teaching English to students with dyslexia. I sent the link to Keith as well, and I think that he's going to share it with you. But apart from that, you can just go to my website, boelevanderpoel.com, and you can download it there for free from my website. You will also find information about my dyslexia awareness training. My next course is coming up in April. It's going to be 6 hours, 2 Saturdays, 13th and 20th, 3 hours each day. We're going to work on understanding dyslexia, dyslexia and language learning, screening for dyslexia, very important, adapting your classes to students with dyslexia, adapting material and your exams, and motivating your students, and most of all, motivating your students with dyslexia. Only 10 places on the course. It's very small, it's very interactive. So if you're interested, I think Keith is going to share a link as well. Sign up for the April course. And I also work on inclusive school programs because, as I said, it's nice to work with individual teachers, but it's better if a whole school gets involved. If it's one school or several schools that combined do one inclusive school program, where we will work on dyslexia awareness training, the one that I told you about before, but from a whole school approach, so also from the admin side, also from the academic manager, also accommodation manager, also marketing, who's going to speak with agents, inclusive practices in the whole school, not just in your classroom, also in activities, also in accommodation, etc. Marketing and communication, because this is an advantage of this is a commercial selling point for a school. Remember, 10 to 15% of population has dyslexia. And continuous support, because this is not something, if you really want to do it inclusive, it's not something like, okay, let's do a 6-hour thing and have some talks. Now, this is something that takes time, that takes several months to work with. So that's why there's also continuous support from my side. That's it for me. It was 50 minutes. I think I'm 5 minutes over time. Keith said to me, he said, try to keep it 45, maybe 50. So it's 15 minutes. It's a very big topic. I had to condense it. I hope that I got the idea across for you guys. If you want to know more, follow me LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I do usually 1 video or 2 videos per week with tips and ideas on Instagram as well. I have a very, very singular name. Hardly anybody else with that name. So just type my name and you will find me. Or send me an email for more information, boelo@teacherstudio.s, and I'll be more than happy to attend to you and speak to you. Keith, back to you. If there are any questions, any whatever.
Thank you very much, Boelo. That was very enjoyable and informative. So if anybody has any questions, they can ask and unmute themselves or put them in the chat box and we'll get a discussion going.
I don't have any questions, but I'd just like to say that was fantastic and very interesting. I've experienced myself. I studied in Barcelona to do my CELTA teaching qualification back in 2000. Just started in 2010 and finished in 2011. And believe it or not, there was a girl on the course doing the course with me, who struggled loads and initially and eventually revealed to the teacher trainers that she had dyslexia, and she was treated really badly. It was an absolute disgrace, to be honest. I spoke to her in the weeks and months afterwards, and she was humiliated in front of the group. And it's interesting. You look at all the possible effects that this can have on people. So it's nice to see that things have kind of moved on, and there's more awareness these days.
Yeah, well, thanks, Louis. Yeah, no, it's exactly, those are the stories, the one that you mentioned, that dyslexics are faced with over and over and over again, and that's why I believe I know it's so important that schools are openly dyslexia friendly, not just some teachers did the course. No, we are openly dyslexia friendly. We invite you to come over to our school and do our courses, because it's true what you say, and I've seen this before in language schools as well, but they don't there's no disclosure, because I think if I disclose this, then there's a stigma, and we have to get rid of that stigma, and the only thing we can do is by train and by communicate continuously. And that's why I always say this is not a problem. This is a strength. And it's not your learning, it's my teaching. I'm actually wearing a sweater that says, you can see, long live the dyslexic brain, because that's what I usually say. I say to students, I say, long live the dyslexic brain. And for me, it's more about the strengths than about the weaknesses, to be very honest. So thanks for that.
We have a question in the chat box there, Boelo, if you would like to read it.
Unless you're going to ask a dyslexic person to read. No, just joking. How can teachers identify if a student's difficulties with reading or writing are because they're potentially dyslexic or the challenges are encountering? Yeah, I get the gist, Benjamin. Thanks. Yeah, there's more things involved than just reading and writing. So yeah, if you see that there's a student that has difficulties in reading a question, or reading in English in L2, and you go like, is this just because it's difficult for them, or is it something else? I would probably say, first of all, is it way below the other students? So is it more or less the same reading difficulty as the student, or is it way below the other students? I would also say, look at the difference. Is there a big difference between his reading ability and his listening ability? So if I read it out to the student, does he all of a sudden get everything? You know, and I would look at that. There's a whole list of things that I won't go over everything here. There's a whole list of things that you can tick boxes. You know, like, yeah, this and that and that, and then in the end you'll go, yeah, there might be. Again, we're not diagnosticians. We're not here to diagnose dyslexia in our students. I think our job is to recognize the traits and to work with the students afterwards. Dyslexia is also, it's not an on or off. It's not a yes no. You know, I always say dyslexia is not pregnancy. With pregnancy, you either are or are not pregnant. You can't say, honey, I think we're slightly pregnant. No, you're pregnant, you're not. You know, and it might be a week or 9 months. That's the difference. But it's not. That's a yes or no. Dyslexia is not yes or no. It's like asking a person, how blonde do you have to be blonde? Yeah, this is with dyslexia. So in those cases, there are other things to look at as well. One of the things that I really like is comparing with your peers. So if you co-teach with other teachers, talk to them as well and say, hey, I've seen such and so struggling with text. Have you had the same experience with that student? And then over a period of time, maybe looking a little bit more at the student, paying more attention to how the student's producing work, if there's some issues with writing as well, if there's some issues with spelling as well, if there's some issues with organizing, with focusing. There's so many things that are involved with dyslexia. And then after a while, I would even say, and after a while, try different strategies. And if you say, hey, these different strategies, these dyslexia-friendly strategies work with this student, then for me, the important thing for me is usually not to no, I'm going to say this. The important thing for me is not to put a label on my student, you know, to say, oh, bang, this is one of the 15% of my students with dyslexia. The important thing for me is to be able to help my student. That's it. And I've had parents come up to me and say, oh yeah, so I know you do dyslexia courses, courses of English for students with dyslexia. I think my kid's dyslexic, but I don't have an official diagnosis. It is a problem. I said, I don't care. I don't need a piece of paper to teach someone English. You know, I just need that person to want to learn the language, and I'm here to help your child. And if you think your child is dyslexic, I will treat your child as such, because, as in the beginning, whatever works for a dyslexic brain also works for the neurotypical brain. So it'll never ever harm your students. It will only benefit your child. And in the end, they go like, thanks, wonderful. That's all I needed. Because and what you said, Luz, is absolutely true. These families, because when you're talking about teenage students in your summer courses, it's the families, and when you're talking about adults, it's the adults. Because obviously your colleague Luz was an adult person. They have been treated so badly so badly by so many of your and mine colleagues around the world in education. It is horrible, absolutely is. So when they find this one, and I've seen this over and over again with myself, when they find this one person, this one institution, this one school that understands them, knows where they come from, that's the admin side. I know where you come from, emotional intelligence, and is able to cater for them, help them, just a little bit. It's not that much. It's just a little bit. That's an eye opener for them, and honestly, they're yours for the rest of their lives. So if they want to go back and study English somewhere, they will always come back to you, and their whole families, friends, everybody, because that's a good thing. Dyslexics usually know other dyslexics as well. You know, they group together. It's like when you got at your schools, you got 15 Spanish students in your school. Where are the Spanish students? With the Spanish students. And where are the Italians? With the Italians. Well, in your own country. Where are the dyslexics? With the dyslexics. The mums group together and they talk to each other. So that's why this is so important.
Just one more question there, Boelo. Is the current terminology to refer to a student with dyslexia, or he, she is dyslexic? What is the respectful terminology?
Yeah, good question, Gabriel. I don't know. You'd have to ask dyslexic students or students with dyslexia. I've had this question before, and I actually, when somebody asked me, because I use it both. I said student with dyslexia, dyslexic students, and etc. And someone said, "Oh, you shouldn't say dyslexic student because it's labeling them too much." And I went like, "Oh yeah, well, I mean, if you think so, it might be." And I started looking online, websites, etc., and British Dyslexia Association and American Dyslexia Association, etc. And they use them almost indistinctively. So I went like, I mean, they use them. And I think usually the majority of dyslexic people just call themselves dyslexic as well. It's I don't know. Is it a blonde person or a person with blonde hair? I don't know. And it might be a cultural thing as well. For instance, in Spain, I think I myself in Spain talk more about people with dyslexia or students with dyslexia than about dyslexic students, but more for the cultural thing, because I saw dyslexic as such used less in the Spanish language than in English language.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, Anita, of course.
Yeah, no, it was just a question about, I have quite a lot of experience with dyslexic students, or the typical thing of European parents being like, no, my kid is definitely, there's nothing wrong with my kid. And they're clearly something. Okay, they obviously have something, either ADD or whatever. But one thing I always struggle with, so I try to keep it as interactive as possible for the kids. But one of the questions I have is more, are there any websites or apps that you would steer clear from? So for example, you know, the typical things that every teacher uses is like Kahoot and all of this kind of thing. Are there any that you would avoid because it's just very difficult for someone with dyslexia to view? Because on paper, yes, changing font and all of that, we can do that, but
Oh no, it's a very good question actually. So this I can't know of any app that I would say, oh, by all means don't use that one. No,
okay.
Because they are usually very visual. That's the good thing. They are usually very visual. They're very short activities. They're very focused on one item. And for instance, when you play Kahoot, it's all up to you if you make the question longer or shorter, you know, and if you make answers longer or shorter. So it's up to you to make it more or less dyslexia friendly. But something you just said before as well, I just want to, wonderful, use that as well when you say the parents, when they go like, oh no, don't say the D word, you know, that don't no, not my child, you know, not my child. And that's actually why I started wearing this, and why I when a mother calls me and says, I think my child might be dyslexic, my first reaction is always congratulations. And I'm thrown, they're off guard, you know, I'm thrown off guard. They go, why on earth congratulations? And I said, because you've got an amazing brain in your household, and you're not aware of this yet. If you and this is true, if you look at the 2030 job list, I think it's called 2030 job list, and it was done by the World Economic Forum. They do the future job list every X amount of years, and you look at the job list, and you look at the the traits of the people. What are they looking for in 2030 for people in the workforce? If you're dyslexic, you'll go like tick, 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 tick. Yes, I'm gonna have a job for the next 30 years. So it's honestly, it's not a problem. That's the whole thing. The only problem dyslexic people face is education. And it's not the learning, it's not you can't learn, it's you learn in a different way, full stop. That's everything. So it's not even learning, it's how we teach. That's the issue with people with dyslexia and how we treat them. That's the thing as well, how we treat the student with dyslexia. So that's why, honestly, with parents, to me, oh no, I say, oh, congratulations, because statistics that I didn't give you, I only gave you the bad ones. 40% of self-made millionaires have dyslexic traits. There you go. It's nice to finish on a good note.
Thank you.
Just ask very quickly.
Yes, Carolina.
Do you have, hi, thank you very much for today. Do
Welcome.
you have a book or resources, something in print that we could buy, or is it just the training?
The guide. Go to my website. There's a guide. I think it's about 30 pages. I'm working on a second edition. Should be up in about 3-4 weeks. But if you download the first one, I'll automatically send you the second one as well, and it'll give you a very good idea of what you can do with your students already. So. And follow me on Instagram. There's 2 videos every week on Instagram as well. So.
Okay, if anybody has any more questions before we finish.
If not, just send me an email whenever you like. Oh, I like Carolina. I just read it. Did you say I am mildly dyslexic? Yeah, I do the same. I'm mildly dyslexic. It's never been a huge problem in my life, but yeah, it's always been there. And the beauty is it will always be there too.
Yeah, pandemic was an eye opener for me.
And
very strong dyscalculic. So
yeah, oh yeah. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Dyslexia and dyscalculia go hand in hand. I think about 65%, more or less, overlap it.